friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a card using Lawn Fawn's Berry Special. So I've stamped those images out on Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. And I'm going to jump in with my mice, and I pulled out some E50 shades so I could create some little brown mice. I went with E50, E51, E53, and E55, although to be honest, I barely used that E50, so you probably could leave that one off this combo. I started by adding that E55 on the backs of their heads. So whichever direction they're facing, I'm going to keep the face nice and light and the shadows will fall on their back. And then I blended out with the E53 and then blended forward with the E51. And I did leave a little bit of white space on the tip of their face, like right at their nose, and then also on the belly if that was visible. So the only one I even attempted to use the E50 on was this third little guy, because you could see a little bit more of his belly than the one next to him to the left. So I did throw a tiny bit of that in there, but honestly I could have just left it white or used the E51, but it is what it is. All good. I'm going to move on to the little sign there, and I'm going to keep my E53 and E55 and add in some E57 to darken up that combo on the edges. And I'm going to add those shadows on both of the outer edges and then blend toward the center. That way the sentiment that is on there can be nice and visible. Then I'll move on to my strawberries, and I'm going to use 4 shades of red. I'm going to use R20, R22, R24, and R29. I just really wanted to have dynamic strawberries since there's so many in this scene, and it's kind of like the focal part of this card, this, strawberry patch that I'm creating. So having a really deep dark red in there and then a very soft pink is just going to make that coloring a bit more striking. I'm starting down at the bottom of each of the strawberries with a little bit of that R29 first, and then blending up with the R24. Then I use the R22, and I'm kind of blending toward one of the corners depending on which way the strawberries are leaning. Sometimes it's on the left-hand side and sometimes it's on the right, but just picking one corner for that highlight with that R20. And I kind of broke it up into different sections. I did, the patch of strawberries all at once, and then I kind of hopped around to do the rest of the images that are stamped out there. And I actually stamped out 2 additional sheets of images because I'm going to be creating a pop-up box card, and I didn't really know how many images I was going to need, but I knew it was going to be a lot. So I just stamped out 3 different panels, but they all include images that appear on this one. One is identical, and then one just has a few of the accessory images. So I'm only showing this one on screen, but it's showing all of the combos that I used for everything and exactly how I colored each of those items. So I'm moving on to the jam, and I wanted that to be a little bit darker, so I took away the R20 and added in the R39, and I just put that darkest down at the bottom and blended up toward the top. And then I'm bringing in R20. I'm going to keep that R20 and add in R000 and R00. I'm going to give all of the mice some rosy cheeks. I'll also color their noses and the insides of their ears. And I'm going to do the frosting on the cupcake, adding a little shading on the right-hand side and on the scalloped edges with that R20. Blending out with the R00 and then using the R000. And I did go back in with a little extra of that R20 and blended that out one more time with the midtone. Then I'm moving on to my leaves, and my first combo is going to be G21, G24, and G29, and I'm going to use this green combo for the majority of the green items. So I'm going to do every other leaf in this little patch, and then I'm going to do all of the strawberry stems with this combo. So I'm starting with that G29, placing that closest to the top where some of those strawberries are in front of the leaves, and so would be casting a shadow there. Sometimes it's another leaf that's in front of it. So I'm just kind of picking and choosing every other one. It's not always exact, but I'm kind of trying to stay in that vein. So there's not too many leaves that are right next to each other that are identical. And then for those caps, I'm just adding a little bit in the center and then going up that stem a tiny ways, and then blending out with the G24, and then adding in the G21 to fill all of those in. And once again, I'm just going to work my way around. So I'm starting with the images in this little patch, in this little strip here, and then I'll go up and start to color in the rest of the images. And I'll do the little caps exactly the same as I did, just they don't have the vine to connect them, but just adding that green right at the top and then at the base of the stem, and then blending out on either side of that with the mid-tone, and then adding a tiny touch of that G21 for a little bit of highlight wherever there is room for it. And I forgot to do the cap of the strawberry that the little mouse has taken a bite out of. So I'm going to have to come back and do that one real quick. And then I'm going to switch up my green combo just to add a little extra contrast in the coloring since there is so much of that green. So I switched to YG11, YG13, and YG17. And again, I'm going to place those darkest shadows at the top of the leaf and blend toward the point of the leaf, using the mid-tone after that, and then the little bit of a highlight on the ends. And I'm going to do the same for the other leaves that I've stamped out on the additional panels. I'm just going to switch back and forth which leaf I start with the darker combo and which one I start with the lighter. And then I'm going to move on to my B. I initially pulled out Y000, Y02, and Y06, but it wasn't quite dark enough, so I did add in the Y08 to just make it a little bit more vibrant. And then for the cupcake liner, I'll use just those darkest 3 shades. And I am going to add a little extra of that Y08. And then for the flower centers, I added the Y08 and blended out with the Y06. But for the actual flowers themselves, I'm just adding a tiny bit of shading with that Y000, which is so pale, it's just barely there, but it gives them just a little bit of something. Then I'm going to move on to some aqua blues for my berry basket. I'm using BG10, BG11, and BG13. So I'm doing my shadows first with that BG13, outlining the edge of that, and then filling in the little, those little slits at the bottom that kind of give the berries some air so they don't go bad so quickly. You guys know what I mean. I filled those in a little bit darker. And then I added the BG11 and BG10 to the bee's wings. I'm also using both of those shades for the little label for my jam jar. And then rather than bring in different blues, I decided to keep in the aqua tones for these little overalls. So I'm adding in BG15 and BG18. And I'm going to color the overalls, like I said, just putting my shading the same way that I did for the actual mouse. So down the back of his body. And then I am also going to use these shades for the little linen, or not linen necessarily, but the cloth top of the jam jar. So just a little of that BG18 first, blending out with the BG15, and then the BG13 for the lightest. And then I'm going to trim all of the images I colored out with their matching dyes. So next I need to die cut the different parts of my scalloped box card pop-up. So I'm just taking the dies and trimming out the parts that I need out of some ballet slippers, cilantro, and mermaid cardstocks, all from Lawn Fawn. Then I'm going to take those pieces and just reinforce the folds that the die kind of embosses into the different pieces. So on the pink parts, there's just this end tab where I'm going to put my adhesive, and then on the green parts, there's a little tab on either end. So I'm just taking a Teflon bone folder and creasing those and making sure that they are really nice and straight and that they're going to fold nice and easy. Then to assemble the box, I'm going to add some 1/4 inch double-sided tape to all of those little flaps. So I'm just pressing that down so that it is lined on that little tab that you see there, and kind of buffing it into place with my fingernail and then tearing it off so that it is the perfect length that I need. So I'm going to just work my way across all of these different pieces and make sure that they are going to be well stuck together so that my box card is not going to fall apart, because they are super fun to play with, and so I want to make sure that it holds up to, multiple uses of folding it, down and then popping it back up again. So that's why I'm using that very strong adhesive. Then I'm just going to peel off the release papers for the pink part, line that tab up with the side of the second piece, and then I'll flip that over. And then I can start to peel the release papers off the green tabs. I just wanted to make sure that I folded the inner parts of that box first too, so I knew that everything was going to line up nicely. But then I'm just going to stick those down, and I'm spacing them a little bit apart from each other so that I have more depth in this box card as I start to add the different elements. So the first one I like to line up pretty much right where the fold is, and then I'm just making sure that's adhered nice and straight. And then the second one I add somewhere in the middle, and you could even add more if you wanted to. You could do 4 tabs or possibly even 5 depending on how you space them apart, but I find that 3 works really well. And then I'll take the last one and put that one almost up to the front. And again, just make sure that those are nice and straight. Hold them into place as I buff all of that down. And then I can peel up the second release papers from the right hand side. I always have a tricky time because my nails are not great, but I'm just kind of working my way under the edge of that release paper, just one by one. And then once I have those done, I'm going to do the tab on the pink part of the box as well, the frame of the box. And then all I have to do is fold the right hand side to meet the left hand side and make sure that I hold everything nice and straight as I do that, and it should fold really nice and straight into place. And then I'll just press everything down and kind of buff it to make sure that that glue is really well adhered. And there you can see how that box is coming together. Just straighten that up a bit. I'm going to fold down 3 of those flaps and leave the back one standing up straight. Then I'll take that mermaid piece that I die cut and add that to the back panel that is standing up, and that is going to become my sky. I'm using Barely Art Precision Craft Glue, which is a liquid glue that dries very fast. So if you don't have a fast drying liquid glue, you might want to use a dry adhesive like the tape that I had used previously. Then I'm going to take some of the fruit salad 6x6 pad. I'm going to use this print here with the red and pink gingham, and I'm going to die cut a few more of those sections to decorate the front of my card. So I'm going to take the square pieces and put those on either end of the flaps that are folded down. Just holding those into place, making sure they're nice and straight before that glue dries. And then I will take the larger piece and add that to the front. And I'm just doing the same thing. There's going to be a little bit of cardstock on either side and then a little bit at the bottom. So I'm just making sure that it's equal on both sides before that is adhered permanently. And then I'm going to do the same on the right hand side. And then I also die cut 3 extra pieces so I could glue those to the base of the box just to give that a bit more decoration as well. You can do that or not. You can also decorate the underside of the flaps if you want to. You could add something to the back. I wanted to leave the back of mine plain because that's a good place to write a message to the recipient later on. And so I just left that for room so I can write what I want depending on who I send it to. So there's the basic part of the box all put together. So now I can start to bring in my images, and I'm going to take one of these strawberry patches and add that to the back where the sky is. Just kind of nestle that in place and then make sure that it is well adhered. And then for the other 3, I'm only going to use the barest bit of glue on the bottom edge where that will overlap those green little dividers. And then I'm squeezing that into place while that glue dries. Like I said, it does dry very, very quickly, so it didn't take long at all. And that way I could make sure that none of the glue kind of squished out anywhere because I've got my fingers back there to feel what I'm doing. And, you know, it's not going to get my box stuck together when you fold it back down. As I'm adhering these strawberry patch little strips, I'm just swapping back and forth between the ones where I colored the darkest leaf on the outer edges and the ones where I used the lighter green combo on the outer edges, just to give it a bit more variety. There you can kind of see that. And then I can start to go in and decorate this box. So I have a little sign there that is actually going to be the only sentiment on the card for now. I could always add an additional sentiment later on and do like a little sentiment banner strip down at the front of the card or on the base of the card. But since I don't know exactly who I'm giving this to, I decided to just keep it simple and only have that little sign. The one that I used on the back part of the sky says "Your Berry Sweet," so that could go for a lot of different occasions. And then I'm going to start adding in my mice. So the one that took the bite out of the strawberry, I put in the first row toward the right hand side. The one that is carrying the trio of strawberries, I'm going to put in the middle on the back row. And then the mouse with the overalls, I'm going to put on the left in the center row, the second row. So I'm just holding those down into place. Like I said, it dries so fast, it's already done. And then I wanted him to be holding something, so I'm going to take one of the single berries and just add a tiny dab of glue on the end of his paw. And then I'll put that strawberry right over top and just hold that for a few seconds until I can feel that it is starting to dry securely. So those were the main elements that I had kind of planned out ahead of time. And then the rest of everything, I just thought, well, I'm just going to add it in here and there wherever I can find room and just make it nice and full. So now I'm just going to start taking some of these accessory images and doing just that. So I'm going to add a berry basket on the back sky piece, and then I'll tuck one of the trio of strawberries into that. I'm also going to take one of the bees and I will glue that down in the space between that berry basket and the wooden sign. So that'll fill in that back sky nicely. And then I'm just going to start working on the little flaps on the sides and the front as well. I did want to add a little grass to those checkered areas though, just to give a bit more grounding to those little scenes. So I die cut those same squares and rectangle out of some cilantro cardstock, and then I used the stitch hillside borders to trim those down even further. So I'm going to glue those down over top of the gingham pieces. And I am trying to not put that glue right up to the very top so that I can tuck things behind it if I want to. And then I'm just going to start decorating. So I turned it toward the left. I actually stamped out 3 of these signs and I put something different on each of them. So the one on the back you already saw, but then there's this one that says berry patch. And then I also stamped one that says pick your own. So I'm going to put one on the left, and then I added the little mouse that's biting the berry again. I'll also take this little trio of berries and add that down below the sign to just fill in the scene. And then I adjusted those images a tiny bit while they were still wet to just move them a little bit more spaced how I wanted them. And then there is the other sign, like I said, that says pick your own, and I'm adding that to the right hand flap, and then I'm going to take the mouse that is carrying the trio of berries and add that, and then I'll take one of the single berries and place that one down on the ground underneath the sign, so it kind of mirrors the one on the left. Then for the front one, I'm going to go all out and decorate that as much as I possibly can. So I'm going to take a couple of the jam jars and tuck those in behind the grass first. And I just kind of put them at a little bit of an angle. And then I'm going to take the label that says jam and add that over top on the center. You could also stamp this little jam label directly onto your jar and then color around it. I think I've done that in the past, so I decided to do the die cut for this one just to see if I like that better. I think actually both ways look nice. And then I'm going to figure out, I knew I wanted the mouse in the center, so I just was figuring out my spacing. But I'm going to put some of the cupcakes on the right hand side. I'm just going to create a little pile of cupcakes there. So these little mice are selling not only pick your own strawberries, but also strawberry related goods at their little stand here. So I did 3 of those cupcakes, and then I'm going to add the mouse between the jam and the cupcakes. Just kind of hawking his wares there. And then I have another bee that I'm going to tuck up above the cupcakes up into the sky. And I'm also going to take another one of the little trio of strawberries and add that down in front of the jam jars. And I think I ended up with just a couple of images left over that I didn't use. I did have one more single strawberry that I decided to add back to the sky. I'm just going to place that right at the base of the basket of strawberries there. Just making sure I have it angled the way that I want it. And that is going to finish off this pop-up box. So there is a closer look at all of that. And then you can see how it folds up so that it can slide into an envelope. And then it kind of pops open when you pull it out. Super fun. I think these dies are so much fun to play with and create different types of scenes in. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. You know I've been obsessed with strawberries this summer, so I hope that you liked it too. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. And subscribe if you haven't already. All of the products I use will be listed and linked for you in the description bar below the video. And if you'd like to keep watching, here are 2 extra videos I thought you might also enjoy. You can click on either one to check them out. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you had a good one, and I will see you soon in another video. Bye-bye.